بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Excellencies, heads of state and government, dear colleagues, Excellency, President of Brazil, Mr. Lula da Silva, Excellency, Prime Minister of the State of Palestine, Mohammed Ibrahim Shitye, heads of delegation, Excellencies, Ministers, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Secretary General of the League of Arab States, representatives of international organizations, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset of my address, on your behalf and on behalf of myself, allow me to extend my thanks to the people and government of the Federal Republic of Ethiopia for the hospitality accorded to us that they have always given to us on the occasion of the organization of our various summits in this beautiful African capital. This beautiful city is the cradle of the first institutional expression of our will to integrate. This was initiated by the fathers of the OAU. All of this is reflected in what President Mukhtar Wildada said in his address in 1963. Quote, "The whole world is looking at us now, especially our African people. The crime that we can commit against our people is to fail." End of quote. The late president believed in upgrading the level of African joint action. He believed that his country represented a historical link between the north and the south of the continent, and he wanted the country to be one of the pillars of the new African organization. Allow me, dear colleagues, to express to you my respect and my deep gratitude for the trust bestowed in me. I specifically refer to my brothers, the leaders of the northern region, who have honored me as you have done to choose me as the chairperson of this union to serve our union. I am honored by this choice, particularly in the midst of this critical period through which our continent is going at the moment. I shall bear this responsibility on the basis of continued consultation and close coordination with all of you. I would like to congratulate my brother and friend, His Excellency Azani Ousmane, the President of the Union of the Comoros, for his leadership skills and for his leadership skills and for the efforts he made to promote the work of our union to achieve the aspirations of African people. I hail at the same time what His Excellency Moussa Faki Mohammed, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, and his team are doing at the moment, along with the various African institutions, in order to play a constructive role to revamp the performance of the Union in terms of effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, what the fathers looked for was what we built together in terms of Agenda 2063. It reflects our plans to develop to create the Africa we want, an integrated and prosperous Africa where peace prevails and where citizens are the leaders of the continent as a power in the international arena. The success of our plans and strategies to achieve this noble goal depends on an effective use of human resources to have an effective quality educational system that is open to new technologies. The adoption of an educational program in Africa to achieve continued and quality education in this year means that this is the right way forward. Education is the starting point for a sustainable development. It is a major support for peace and security. It is based on promoting skills, and this opens up new job opportunities. It reduces unemployment, poverty, and marginalization. Allow me, dear colleagues, to focus here on youths. Youths represent at the moment about 62% of the African populations. The loss of our youth is the loss of our continent. An uneducated youth means that Africa remains uneducated. African youths lacking the basic skills and who are unemployed in their countries and who are now taking up the boats of death through illegal immigration because of the absence of the horizon for a life in dignity and because of the absence of living in dignity in their country. All of these elements are a source of concern to us, and this means that we need a revolution in our educational systems. Our continent is lagging behind when it comes to the achievement of the fourth objective of development. We need to have comprehensive development, and we need to address the problems faced by our educational systems because of low accessibility and the high rates of dropouts, in addition to low quality of training and the various challenges. It is not acceptable to leave 17% of our children out of schools, out of primary schools. 75% of our young people do not have the skills that they need in secondary education. We all have, as governments and civil society and various actors, we have to deploy further efforts to mobilize the human and technical and financial resources to create a revolution in our educational systems. The aim is to provide our girls and boys on equal footing with the same opportunity to have the necessary skills on a continuous basis. The aim is to unleash the potential of African women and to enable them to participate in the leadership positions and in development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, 10 years ago, the first decade plan was adapted within the framework of Agenda 2063. This is part of the mid-term development plan of the African countries and in REX and in the various regions. 10 years ago, the context was not conducive to development, and crises were multiple. There were health crises, environmental and security crises. All of them have had an impact on increasing challenges and represented major impediments to development. These challenges impeded the implementation of Agenda 2063. However, some promising progress has been made in different areas, such as the development achieved in the establishment of the AFCFTA and the establishment of the first stages, particularly with regard to the promotion of commodities and now the new protocols on investment have been adopted to promote competition. Now we have worked seriously on the digital identification of the AFCFTA and the agreement on the rules of origin. Some promising progress has been achieved in terms of the digital infrastructure and the road infrastructure, and also in relation to free skies. 37 countries have joined the African Common Market on aviation, in addition to the mechanisms and the new partnerships to develop Africa, and also in relation to the development of Auda Nepat. We are now part of G20. We need to work harder to promote reform the UN system to consolidate the presence of our continent in its leadership position, with now the new seat in the Peace and Security Council. With your support, and we shall deploy further efforts, particularly with regard to the various reforms to create a new agreements on promoting development, and all of this on the basis of flexibility and greater access to funding that should not increase our debt. We also hail the efforts made by the African Development Bank in this regard. I shall work with you to establish in favor of a multipolar system that is more balanced and fair, and which takes into account the interests of the least developing countries, and where our continent has a voice that is heard. The current international system, as it is now, is characterized by bias and double standards at the expense of the weaker and the least developed countries. And this has an impact on the rights and the causes of our continent. To understand the need for this international system to be reformed, we need to look at what is happening in Gaza in terms of destruction and the violation of international legality, in addition to the violation of human rights. The international community is not putting its weight to stop the war and to have a ceasefire and to provide the population with assistance. All of this to ensure the Palestinian people's right to establish an independent state with Eastern Jerusalem as its capital in line with international law. On this occasion, I am proud of the positions of the African Union, which reject injustice and which are based on promoting international law, particularly when it comes to the Palestinian cause. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in spite of the progress made here and there, in some areas, slowness is still the characteristic of our work. Thus, and within the framework of the decade 2024-2034, we need to intensify efforts to deal with the situation in different areas in the continent. Over 600 million Africans do not have access to electricity in the 21st century. Our continent has over 50% of utter poverty in the world, and it has, whereas it has 25% of arable land in the world. It only contributes 10% to the world agricultural produce. This is a continuous threat to its food security. We all know there is no sovereignty. The Ukrainian-Russian crisis shows our limited capacity to face the crisis because of the trouble we witnessed in supply chains. Our continent is going through a paradox. There is a gap between the tremendous human resources, the strategic position of the continent, in addition to the various natural resources of the continent, that can make it a continent of peace and prosperity, and the reality that is characterized by poverty and marginalization. And to address this paradox, we need to mobilize all the resources in order to ensure an effective implementation of the second decade plan 2024-2034. The reports that will be submitted by my brothers, the presidents, and the diagnosis and the recommendations on the establishment of the AFCFTA and the implementation of the infrastructure project in its second edition, PIDA 2, in addition to the programs to promote agriculture and the common energy market. All of these plans will be have an impact on the implementation of the decade plan. The reorganization of the institutions of the African Union will be a lever to achieve these objectives. The effectiveness of the implementation of this second plan depends on our capacity to involve the private sector to implement the various themes of the plan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, one of the major challenges facing our continent at the moment is the spread of tension and armed conflicts, in addition to terrorist groups. These jeopardize peace and security, and they are affecting the social fabric of our communities, with a negative impact on the living conditions of the populations. Terrorism and civil wars in our continent generate a loss of life and a destruction of infrastructure and economic systems. All of this means that the fight for peace and security should be our first priority. We need to work together in order to establish a common peace in the continent through the various mechanisms that are part of the Peace and Security Council, particularly with regard to the early warning systems and the standby force. We also need to promote the level of coordination within the regional economic communities and among these communities. We will not overcome the development challenges alone, and we cannot meet the development and social challenges without building a continental comprehensive policy that takes into consideration security, society, and culture. The Africa we want is the one that works hard to solve its own conflicts without waiting for ready-made solutions from abroad. Through dialogue, it can coordinate and it can find the appropriate solutions to its problems. It is true that we need to expand our partnerships with the various parties, but we should not be an arena for competition among others, which is detrimental to us economically, socially, and also from a security perspective. What makes the security situation more complicated in the continent is what we witnessed recently in terms of the unconstitutional changes that have an impact on the social and political stability of many countries. Of course, our union has made significant efforts through its legal mechanisms and through its various decisions and declarations. As we did in Algiers in 1999 and in Lomé and Accra in 2020 to deal with unconstitutional changes. But this did not prevent the return of unconstitutional change in our continent. All of this means that we need to work together to consecrate the rule of law and to establish real democracies that guarantee a peaceful alternation of power on the basis of stability and transparency. All of this requires that we need to pacify the political situation and overcome social conflicts and ethnic strife through dialogue and consultation. We need to improve social governance, economic governance, and political governance in general. Today, more than ever, we need to be inspired by African wisdom, the spirit of dialogue, and the search for consensus to manage the various crises. So we need to be innovative to bring back stability and peace to our societies. We need to improve economic, social, and political governments. We need to improve environmental governance. In spite of our weak contribution to the pollution which is leading to climate change, we are the most affected by this change in terms of floods, desertification, and the deterioration of our environment. Therefore, we have to deploy further efforts to promote the capacity of our citizens to adapt to the implications of climate change. And we need to work for the benefit of a sustainable climate management. Our continent has a tremendous capacity in terms of green hydrogen. This means that we can meet the challenge of access to energy and industrial transformation in the continent. All of this is possible if we can intensify coordination and partnership in order to mobilize the necessary resources to create a climate revolution by a better use of green hydrogen. With your support, I will work on using the available resources to us in the continent so that we can contribute to the achievement of the Agenda 2063. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the current situation in the world and in the continent requires more efforts on the basis of our common principles and values. We need to be aware of our common sense of destination. All of this means that we need to achieve our noble goals. The achievement of our noble goal of having a continent that is prosperous and integrated with peace and security, to be a dynamic force in the world, may, because of the current situation, may sound difficult at the moment. But as a matter of fact, this noble goal can be achieved. And we shall achieve this objective together on the basis of Agenda 2063, on the basis of the strength of our union, and because we have the tremendous resources and we have young populations on the basis of our ambitions and expectations. Therefore, all of us have to continue promoting the institutions of our union. In this way, we can have a better control of our future and affairs, and we can increase our integration and unity. And in this way, we can meet the expectations of our people, the legitimate expectations, as shown in Agenda 2063. I call upon for more unity and efforts to meet the challenges faced by our continent. I declare open the summit of the heads of state and government of the African Union, and I wish you full success in your deliberations. I thank you very much.